Now let's continue on this topic of the NATO summit happening right now in Washington. I want to bring in our next guest, who is Victor Teo from Singapore. He is an Indo-Pacific affairs political scientist specialist. Victor, really good to have you on the program. So NATO is actually calling China a decisive enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine. Do you agree with that?
Well, I can see why NATO would see it that way. After all, China is actually helping Russia, at least from commercial as well as the industrial viewpoint, in the war in Ukraine. So I can see why the NATO would call the Chinese that. But personally, I think there are always two sides to the story. From the Chinese perspective, Russia is an important partner, a traditional partner, as well as a security partner of the People's Republic of China. So the NATO alliance expansion is something that the Chinese are concerned about. So in that respect, China sees a certain commonality in the expansion of U.S. efforts, or to, if you like, to show up her alliances in the Asia-Pacific area. So I think there's a common security threat from the Chinese perspective. So
Yeah.
both sides have their own, positions.
Let me ask you about a comment there coming from Beijing. China has told NATO not to create chaos in the Asia-Pacific. Do you think that NATO is really overstepping its boundaries here when it's actually talking to countries such as Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea?
Well, I think, it's North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So this is an institution that is actually focused mainly on European security. Now, this is a new development that the NATO is actually speaking to the American alliance partners in the Asia-Pacific. So this development would appear to be quite alarming for the Chinese, because it's the first time that we are seeing a linking between the European security institution to Asia-Pacific security matters. Of course, this at this stage is just a dialogue, but there is actually potential for more to evolve. And now we are seeing, and of course, from the Asian partners' perspective, bringing more extra regional powers into the region to help balance China might be a sensible thing to do. But what is actually happening is that on both sides, there is actually an increase in threat perceptions, as well as there's a downward pressure on the downward security spiral from the perspective of both sides.
Now, China has rejected the accusation from NATO about being this enabler, a decisive enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine. How do you think that Beijing is going to respond now? Will it take sort of the hint from NATO and stop supplying Russia with weapons? Or do you think that it'll stop having this close relationship with Putin?
I think it's very difficult because the Chinese have always insisted that for any peace to come about, it's necessary for the Ukrainians and the Russians to be on board. So in that respect, the previous peace summit organized by Ukraine, they did not actually have the Russians on board. So that's why the Chinese were not very keen to take part in that summit. So in that respect, I really don't think that the rhetoric is going to work on the Chinese. Certainly, the NATO institution is not going to be successful in trying to shame China into stopping her supplies to the Russians. I don't think so.
Victor Teo, really good to have your analysis and insight here on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.